What is up, my Lorcana Goons, and welcome back to another episode of the Meta Watch Mondays series. My name is Kevin, here with Zach Stone up here, and we're going to go over Lorcana meta trends, tournament results, and what you need to be expecting as we make our way towards the set champ season for Winter Spell. We are watching the Randolph Rosemont CCQ, which was in Montreal, Canada, where first place was taken by ETB Chris over here with Purple Steel, playing in the finals against a dog deck. Now, we've been saying for the longest that dogs is like best deck in the meta, but I feel like as the last couple weeks have gone on and on, a lot of players are adding the spicy techs to defeat the dog deck, right? I still think it's like top 2 decks of the meta for sure. I think Purple Steel is one of the most forgiving decks of the format, letting you kind of make a lot of interesting plays and refill your hand, but there's a lot of outliers, so we're going to go over some cool plays from this game alongside tournament results after this as well. But Zach Stone, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. This is a new week, and what is up, Lorcana Goons? I'm kind of excited because this finals feature match has got to be what a lot of people expect the meta to be more or less shaped out to be. We have dogs against Purple Steel. And a lot of conversation between what some may say is like correct or not. As a dog player, I found myself not liking Gogo Tamago as much, just because there's too much evasive answers, and plus on turns like 4 and 5, like it's still a lot of ink to commit. It's like a 4-cost character. There's like something to say here because there's like multiple Gogos in the deck. We saw like a Nani reveal one, and now he drew one for his Bobby ability and discards this Chromacon and develops another one. But I don't know. I'm like playing the second Chromacon every time on my next turn. You are staring down like an Angel, Olaf, and a Genie. And see, you run into something like a Benja too.
That Benja's
like,
crazy.
Exactly.
That's
exactly why I would probably hold the second Chromacon. Like, I don't think you need the Grandmother Willow right away. Yeah, Angel's always shooting it down. Like, you got to read the room.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of double Chromacon on the board. I've always told a lot of people who were playing this deck, like, there's probably no reason to ever put double Chromacon on the board. I feel like it's a waste of 3 ink, so I understand why you would draw and discard it. But I guess when you are trying to, like, play around the opposing deck list, maybe you have to respect that concept of them having a Benja or something to get rid of it. And maybe, you said it a little while ago, against Purple Steel, maybe that might be the deck to actually play double Chromacon against. But for the most part, I've never been a big fan of like playing double Chromacon. I feel like it just kind of takes up your whole turn, and like you need to go wide on the board with the dog deck, right? So especially in that scenario, man, you have a 1-cost, a 1-cost, and a 3-cost character. Only 3 characters, so like double Chromacon didn't seem like it was needed. But look at this Angel, bro. This Angel is getting value every single turn. Every single turn, discard pop, discard pop, discard pop.
Like Willow didn't do anything. Like, it was just going to be Angel food. Like, you want him discarding cards every turn. I don't think that's like a good way to combat like that character. You have to deal with it in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, like another Chromacon here would have probably put Chris in a different position. I think we could have done a lot, especially since like we're developing a Shift Lady here. Like, imagine we have a Chromacon now to where we can have like a way to gain back infinite value. You also just slow him down in his process to accelerate the game. And there's a lot of 2 Lord Questers, man.
We actually don't have the deck lists for this tournament.
Yeah.
So
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, we won't have it for this video right now.
Oh yeah.
But maybe when we're fortunate enough after this part is over, we can get some access to some deck lists. Maybe somebody will share it. Who knows?
Yeah, I think if you guys are like having trouble against the dog deck, this is like one of the really good match you should watch from this Purple Steel player. Developing the Angel on curve was really important, and then like being able to play 2 Lord Questers back to back to back, because like Yzma is going to refill your hand, right? But you also have the ability to outpace them. So that's the thing about setting up double Chromacon. I feel like if you would have used another turn to play the second Chromacon, he just quests with the Benja for 2, the Yzma for 2, the Genie for 2. That's 6 lore every turn. You're going to win the race because you only have like 2 characters on board. You just stop using the Angel ability at that point. So this Big Tramp, and that's another thing too, man. The dog deck did not see Big Tramp on curve. This is like probably like turn 6, because the Purple Steel player used 5-6 Seek or something. So to only see Big Tramp like up until turn 6, that's like a really good sign. So there's a couple different things you want to look out for when you're playing against the dog deck. I think you really want to be able to take advantage of when they go slow.
What do we know the card he kept in hand? Because he discarded Della's, and I almost feel like Della's is the card you kind of want right there. It's another Della's.
I think it might be. We'll see though. But go ahead.
I'm just saying, it allows you to trade up a little bit better into some of the characters that we can be expecting. This Demona is easily going to take out um, something, but he also has Angel to be able to pop. Yeah, see, I don't like putting that much damage on the lady. I would have tried to salvage the lady's ability or the lady's willpower here, because even if he gets to swing with Demona, that just allows you to deal with it on the following turn. This just feels a little bad for the dog player, and I think they just drew Under the Sea right now. So like if they would have kept that Della's, let's see if they did keep a Della's. Let's see what the other card was.
They did.
Yep, it was. You're right.
Which is like honestly perfect top deck, Loki. like I mean, like it was perfect. Like you have the Della's top deck, the Under the Sea. Like there is some comeback potential here.
There's no way you don't hit the Angel. Wait, what did you hit the?
Yeah, they hit the Demona. They hit the Demona instead. Very interesting. Very interesting.
I don't like that. Like I think the Angel is just a problem. And see, like Demona and Angel is the same thing as far as a character that deals with something on your board, but Angel just deals with more stuff, and like he's choosing to keep this card in hand, so I wonder if it's like a dock or something. I don't know about you, Kevin, but I'm taking out this Angel with my Tramp and Lilo.
I think so too. I think
you don't need to anymore. You can just take it out with Lilo, because you can play. You can play it for 1 now.
Okay, pretty smart. I like that. Yeah, because you have the big Tramp. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. The Demona probably just seemed like a little more problematic in the like a couple turns after that. But look at this, why I like Christopher Robin, man. People were saying Christopher Robin is not a good card. Like it's a good card for this reason. When Chris is at 12 lore, dog player is only at 6 lore. This Robin, just so much pressure here, putting a lot of pressure here, because you're going to be able to quest for 2 every turn. That's going to close the game out in just 2 turns, right? After questing though, dog player Osman catches up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is story on board, is what they like to say. Trying to consider what trades you make here. You might even be able to do Robin and Doc into the lady, but I think he's opting the quest. If I know there's Go-Go Tamagos in my opponent's deck, I just think I'm doing a little bit more trading on the board here and not allowing him to have a lot of ways to kind of like cheese the game on me, you know.
He did leave himself open to a top deck Go-Go, but like, you know, he
is gone to a Go-Go, because you are able to gain that 1 lore off of the Elsa, but to be honest, you better draw it, and I think he took out the lady, right? If I'm
he took
correct,
out the one lady.
because
he took out the lady.
Yeah, so he stopped the shift line from being able to like add a Go-Go from the discard. So that's essentially
eliminating
and
I'm
more
pretty
cards
sure
that you can draw.
I'm pretty sure Chris looked at the discard pile when he discarded the cards off Tramp to kind of notice, oh, there's definitely a Go-Go there. But if he would have traded, then he would have put. I think he had more than 20 lore on board. With the amount of characters. So yeah, there's a world where he could have gotten another extra trade. Maybe use the Elsa to clear the Lilo, because that would have been like 1 off of lethal with the Go-Go anyways. There's only 1 more damage, so that's one of the things to always look out for. For sure, if your opponent is playing Go-Go in the deck, always look out for that, because that could be kind of detrimental to your game plan sometimes, I think. But we do know, we don't have the deck list for this event, but we do know that the Purple Steel player was playing Fire the Cannons. And I like Fire the Cannons in the meta, but I also feel like it's such a bad card. You know what I mean? An uninkable 1-drop. But look at this, turn 2 Christopher Robin. This is so good against a dog deck, because it's just questing for 2, you know, in a deck that plays Cobra. I think it's really important. I'm looking like
because like I could see him going like Captain Hook and Fire the Cannons here, and then you might even be able to get away with sending Christopher Robin on a quest if you want. It does kind of play into I do like the quest here. You are inviting him to trade, but a couple cards that I think I'd be a little bit more worried about now would just be a potential like shift Under the Sea line that the dog player could have, because if you shift Lady, you have enough on board to sing Under the Sea and just bottom deck the whole board, which is going to set them back a lot. I actually think that would be the right play if you had it, because that is taking away like from the strength turn that you could be expecting. Some Purple Steel decks can go wide enough to be able to strength like a 7-drop Tramp, which is kind of crazy.
What do you think?
No ink.
But I know he has another Willow in hand. He has a big Tramp in hand too. So it wouldn't have been better just to ink the Nani and play the big Tramp there.
I would have inked the Lilo. There's no reason that like, okay, so like, I think we're really overvaluing Lilo here. Like, let's be honest. Like, Lilo is a character that's nice to be able to get back from the discard, but you play 4.
Yeah.
You don't need to have
I agree.
One all the time. You can ink that card.
The purple steel player hard cast
Yeah,
strength
you
there.
got.
That's a very good point what you just
Yes,
said. Yeah.
yes, no, like I team purple steel hard cast strength so many times on a willow, just to delay this turn that the dog deck has to play the 7-drop tramp. I think it's kind of important we recognize what you need to do in these matchups, and by far both players are kind of exhibiting that technical play right here, and this is great. But
There's a Pluto Steel champion on board, one of our favorite cards in the Steel class right now to be able to combat the Chromacons. Now for the rest of the game, his Chromacon's just useless. Like now all he has to really worry about is Under the Sea.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say too, like what I think Osmon wants to do is like put a bunch of Lilos in his discard pile, but now we found ourselves in a situation where like we only have 2 ink. So even if we just put a bunch of Lilos in a discard, we're bringing back 1 at best. We already lost one of our grandmother Willows to a strength. So we know our opponent is committed to kind of dealing with this stuff.
3 Lilos in the discard pile, but you good point, Zach. He can only bring back 1. He can only bring back 1.
Yeah, like even with 1 grandmother Willow in play, he could ink another card for his turn, bring back 2. So that 1 Lilo, it could be in the inkwell and it doesn't change anything. He would have been able to accelerate his board just a little bit wider with like another Willow already in play. Then if he had 2 Willows in play, he could essentially bring back 2 Lilos with 2 ink. That's how you can get around that one.
How do you feel about Chris not questing on this turn? I feel like you have some pretty good like questers you could just quest with, maybe like your Doc or even just the Demona at this point, because you can swing with your Pluto. Like I would want to be gaining that lore little by little.
He just played Olaf, so I don't quest with Doc. I think that was not, but I don't think you could quest with Doc right there because Olaf is a little more niche. And yeah, I kind of like just getting some extra lore. Like your opponent has to make some awkward trades, no matter what, and Demona probably doesn't get dealt with unless like it's a huge like Della's Rhino Under the Sea everything but the Pluto turn. That's probably what he's trying to do, and you can see that he just kept Under the Sea here, and yeah, you can't blame the dog player. I think he played 2. He has another 7-drop tramp in play. It's all the way next to the Ursula, so you can barely see it. So he's singing with the Ursula and that tramp, and he didn't have a Rhino, so the Calhoun's also alive. And so yeah, fun fact, you can trigger the Olaf here. So if he quested with the Calhoun and wanted to protect it in some way, Olaf would trigger, and you can return the Calhoun back to hand.
If he had another Doc anyways, it just feels like a loss of value in my opinion, because you kind of know what they're setting up. They're setting up the Under the Sea line. You know they're gonna try and dig really big. Maybe that's what the dog. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's what Osman was doing, saving his big tramp for the actual moment when he needed it. Because like realistically, that's what he did. He played 2 big tramps in 1 turn, found a perfect hand, quested with all his weenies. 3 tramps actually. I mean, it's like almost. It feels really really difficult to beat the dog deck when they have 3 big tramps on board. I'll be real. But that Demona seems pretty cool. That Demona alone can clear 1 tramp, which is nice. So I like Demona in the purple steel deck. I do want to add that.
Would you ever go as far as playing like the item that gives your Demona's Rush and gain a lore when you tap something on your turn? Or tap your opponent's
feels too cheeky.
Characters on your turn.
Feels a tad too cheeky in my opinion. Just because it's a 3-cost item. I feel like if it was like a 1 or 2 cost item, I'd be down.
Especially with all this item hate in the mirror match now. Yeah, you can't get away with it anymore.
Osman won. I think Osman did win that one.
Yeah. And I think the dog deck was able to kind of just get ahead a little too fast. Outside of just like kind of being a little too conservative with his ink decisions, everything else was, perfectly played. So not here to just bash. I want to definitely, make the points where they matter most. These players are actually, obviously getting to the finals of a CCQ has got to be grueling enough. You don't just get there by accident. You have to earn your way, especially here since winner is the only one going to Disneyland.
Once again, I am asking Ravensburger to change the CCQ layout so that it's not just the first place, because it feels so cutthroat for like a Disney card game to
We
only allow one person.
we need 500 something players for nationals, and I just want to say that all the time. Like, we 500 players for continentals isn't a bad thing.
Do you feel like not having Angel in that game too was kind of detrimental for the purple steel strat there? Because I think it gave a lot of turns for Osman to build up his dog strategy under the sea line.
I don't think as a purple steel player you want to go like turn 1 drop, turn 2 1 drops, turn 3 hard crash strength. I don't think you want to do that no matter what. You had to do that to kind of get back this this edge that you were behind on once the dog player developed like things like Grandmother Willow and stuff like that. But you'd rather do other things, right? You'd rather drop a Calhoun on turn 2. You'd rather especially dropping a Calhoun on turn 2, it just allows you to survive this under the sea thing that you know the dog player is eventually going to do. They're going to have to manipulate its strength in order to get it back to the bottom of the deck. So you might as well force them to do it. And Olaf on turn 1 is probably not what you want to do either into this matchup.
I
Again,
think
we know the outcome of this because we're spoiled with who won.
Inca and Mowgli play a Bobby. I wonder if he has another Mowgli in hand, because I think as a purple steel enjoyer myself, I'm terrified when they Mowgli me.
He go. And I don't know if I'm discarding Chromacon just yet.
I think he
I
drew
don't know what
Go-Go.
other one drops.
I think he
so
drew
I don't
Go-Go
know
off
what
of
other-
the Bobby.
No,
by the
he
way.
had the Go-Go. He had the Go-Go
Really?
already. But see, I don't know. Oh, he has an Ursula. So actually,
okay.
this is fine.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm discarding Chromacon yet. And if I had another 1-drop, even Rhino, I'd play it instead of Bobby because I kind of want to see their hand before I make a discard decision. Because right here, I'd get to know if there's any Benjas or Plutos, to know if my Chromacon's going to be alive.
What's crazy? You know what's crazy?
Okay.
He had Fire the Cannons in hand. And inked the Mowgli and played the Ursula instead of the other way around. And personally, like as somebody who also like likes to play these decks, I'm always much more impressed with the dog players when they Ursula me on their turn, on the turn where I have a 3-cost singer, right? That's usually when I feel like, dang, they got me. I played my 3-cost singer and they played Ursula right after that, kind of off curve. I feel like maybe Mowgli would have been better on that turn too. But it's not open deck list, I don't think, with this final, so you can't really predict that much. But man, that's a tough one. That's a tough decision, I think, to have to make. Either way, though,
I think it's only the DLC format that, or like anything like that relation does like more open deck lists, unless like the tournament organizers announce it ahead of time. To be honest,
I wonder if that is just like luck or if that's a skill diff, because that's a crazy thing to have to decide. Do I ink Mowgli, play Ursula, or the other way around in this type of game? Because that would have been the big difference. He still has a Fire the Cannons in hand, and I want to see how much work that puts in right now.
Do you know? Yeah, I think you knew the Elsa was in hand in some way, or else you don't want to make this play. It's a little awkward. Yeah, I don't know about this play, because see, as the dog player, I think I inked the Go-Go already, right? But I'd slam Go-Go here because I'm just like, I need to gain 4 lore when that's right available to me.
Yeah, it's too tasty. It's too tasty. I agree.
I know we inked the Go-Go, so we don't have that as an option. But yeah, like I don't like Lilo into purple steel, guys. Like, look what it's doing. Absolutely nothing into the board.
I kind of have to disagree just a little bit, just because it's a constant pressure. Like in my opinion, I think Lilo is one of the best cards in the game right now. It's just constant pressure. Look, it's eating up a Fire the Cannons, but it is going to also eat up 2 ink in the beginning of the turn because he doesn't have a Grandmother Willow. And yeah, these 2 Lorquesters, man. Like, what's crazy about the purple steel board right now is that it is so like susceptible to an under the sea. Like, it's just one under the sea and the game is completely different. But we're not seeing Big Tramp. We're just not seeing the Big Tramp on the side of Osman, and I think that is like a very big like tell as to like why this game is being swayed a certain way right now.
The Mona, the Mona coming down. So like, I don't want to necessarily go back and forth on the Lilo argument. I'm just going to say that like when you are building your board, I think the last character I want to build my board with is a Lilo. Basically like pre Under the Sea. I think after you do the board wipe, Lilo is going to be very nice for you. But where Lilo shines is just like the ability to just kind of like come back. And there's no cards like Scrump, I think, in Osman's deck list. So like Scrump is one of these cards that also allows Lilo to become a little bit more effective because essentially, if you have enough characters, you could just turn like all those genies and Elsas off. Genie still quests for 2, and that's like another problem, is that like you're gonna lose the race into this kind of situation, and Lilo just coming back exerted just means it's at risk for being challenged. Counting lore. I like when players like count lore in advance. It needs to be practiced a little bit more. But what he also, I think, wants to consider is an under the sea. He wants to stop his singing ability here.
Yeah, really important, because if he quests with everything, it puts him like right behind the lethal range, and then Under the Sea will literally clear 4 characters off of the board. And there is a world where like you just can't finish the game after that, so you at least have to make like
I wonder
one
if
trade.
Cobra's not in the list. Have we seen a Cobra like come down?
Giant Cobra? I don't think we've seen it. Yeah, you may. I don't think we've seen it inked or played. Very interesting. Very interesting if it wouldn't be in the list, right? But I mean, you never know, because the Cobra is just a card that also just gets inked in this matchup for the most part because of Della's Moon. You know, it really does suck when they just pop your 3-cost character with a 2-cost that had some draw. Oof. And that's gonna be the game. You know, no big tramp. Oh, there's the big tramp at the end. No big tramp, bro. It's kind of a problem, I think, for this for the deck sometimes. But having double Under the Sea in hand.
Turn 1, it was turn 1 Bobby, I think may have been the least effective decision. I feel like a lot of people are scared to drop a Rhino turn 1 because they want to hold it for something, but like Bobby is a card that will get you answers when you need it, and because you had another 1-drop to play, I prefer that. But I don't know. I could just be like dead wrong when I'm making this call. Just because also too, when you're on the draw, you're not going to be able to like sing the Under the Sea Rhino Tramp until you're even like more ahead. So I'd get a little bit more information before I'd make a Bobby decision personally.
Yeah, I like the argument, by the way, that you made about like wanting to know information from the hand before making that decision for Bobby and discarding. That's really important. And I want to give a huge shout out to Inkborn Heroes for streaming the event and having it on their channel so we could watch it and do stuff like this. You guys are awesome content creators, probably best in the game, to be honest. So be sure to give them a follow. Huge shout out to Chris and Osman for being in the finals of that CCQ. Congrats to both of them. I think they both deserve invites along with like anyone who was in top 4. So pretty cool to see. But let's go ahead and move on to some other deck lists from this weekend. We have a 51 player tournament where first place was Pedro Palma with Sapphire Steel Allies. This is a pretty cool strategy to be able to combat the dog strategy, because dogs are everywhere. Purple Steel is also everywhere, and I think one of the problems with Purple Steel is that it plays a lot of weenies. Like, for the most part, a lot of your characters don't cost more than 5. I think Elsa and Hades are like those exceptions, and this deck though just kind of walks all over it when it gets to that curve, because Purple Steel has a really tough time with dealing with high willpower. Vincenzo Santorini, Hades, even this Tinkerbell and Goliath with 5 willpower, like it's kind of hard to set up a wide board of 5 characters and strength it away. Angel only does 2 damage, and most Purple Steel decks are not playing Heroldis Thunderbolt to finish the job, so that's why I do like Purple Steel as a meta call right now, and it taking first place does not surprise me.
I lost to Blue Steel actually at the day 1 of Yent, and you know, it was unfortunate when I chose. Well, I didn't have the Mowgli. I went Ursula into on my turn 2 just to kind of get some information. I didn't have a better turn 2 play, and their hand was like Sail into Angel, and then they had 3 Tinkerbells in their hand, and those are cards you actually don't want to see as a dog player ever. There's like Angel and Tinkerbell. Like, those cards alone probably will just deal with anything you decide to put onto your board, exerted or not. Eventually, when they like turn 2 ramp Drew, they decided to play like Cindy on turn 3, so they just started dropping Tinkerbells back to back to back, and it's hard to deal with that as a dog player for sure. And Blue Steel will probably take that matchup in like a 55-45 type of way. Dogs do have a lot of lines to combat, and what does help actually is a lot of 3 willpower characters and up. So like, you're focusing on like your 2-drop tramps, your 1-drop inkable ladies, and even Ursula is also a 3 willpower character. So if you are getting to rip some thunderbolts and some strengths out of the hand, That might be good into that deck. One Desperate Plan in this list too is interesting. I've wanted to play Desperate Plan a lot, but
Same.
I've just never been desperate enough.
I like the card.
the
I think it's a pretty good card. It's like an extra dock, but it's so hard to play more than one because if you ever see double Desperate Plan, it just feels bad. Like it feels terrible. Or like Desperate Plan dock in the same hand does not feel good. But at least you could just play out the dock with no effect, and it's still a character on curve, right? Maybe it'll help you with your strength line. But Desperate Plan, what it says is if you have no cards in hand, you draw 3 cards. If not, you discard X amount of cards and you draw the same amount. So it is kind of a way to cycle your hand away. And maybe in Sapphire Steel, since you do have the ramp ability, it's not too big of a deal to just play it out and kind of rearrange your hand. I can see that argument too.
Yeah, like the one Arthur too helps like beat the stare at you wars, when you just don't want to turn anything sideways because there's Tinkerbells all over the place.
Yeah, I want to see more
play the
Steel.
Arthur and swing.
I want to see more Steel cards with that ability to challenge readied characters because it's so niche. Like it's so limiting to the amount of characters they've given it to. It's like Arthur, the Ruby Steel Mulan. There's like a Gizmo Duck that's green steel that says you can do it to damage
Darkwing
characters.
Duck, okay, and that's villain.
That one's
so
cool.
They're doing stuff.
I'm
hoping they're not forgetting.
I'm hoping post rotation like that becomes like a new way to combat the boards because like I will admit one of the things I dislike about this season or this like these recent formats is that it has been a lot of stalemates since Fabled. Like since Fabled, it has just been like stalemate format, and that's why like cards like Elsa and Demona are so good because they just break the stalemate, right? And we don't have a lot of that same removal we used to have before in like the pre-rotation meta. So I would really like to see Steel, or maybe it's not Steel, maybe it's like a Ruby ability or something. I would like to see Steel add more cards like that. I kind of would even argue they should have given this ability to a different color class, right? Maybe like something like Emerald or Amber, which doesn't really have much inherent removal. I would like to see that though. But let's go ahead and move on to another deck list from this tournament because we have some spicy lists. We have a Amber Steel deck list. This was in the top cut of this tournament as well. And Amber Steel Song has been doing a lot of things in the last couple of weeks, man. A lot of good tournament results with this deck and in multiple tournaments, especially this week and last week as well. This deck has a very strong matchup against anything other than Blurple. I would like to say like Blurple does kind of feel like a 45-55 kind of matchup sometimes. If they go first on curve, they have just a really clean way to clear your singer characters like Ice's Vanderchill and the Elsa are just going to kind of put you in a like tough position because you really want to set up your 1 cost, maybe your Grandmother Willow, and start cheating out some 4 cost characters. But if they're able to turn your character sideways, this Ariel gets no value, this Bambi doesn't get any value, and that's like kind of tough, I think, to be able to come back through.
No, you deal with Isis very well. What you do, well, even if you're on the draw, right? If you find Angel and Underdog, you just sing a Cood and play Powhatan, and right then and there, they're kind of stuck dealing with your Powhatan, and they may have to just start swinging multiple characters to get rid of it. So they don't even get to play Isis, right? Like it won't do anything. And from there, your like decisions get a little bit more like linear. You are just going to be either developing like a Nani and then just finding more like follow up. Maybe you just go a little bit more wider and drop like Mulans or like a Willow into another 2 drop, for example. But even if you just get to do that, you've put yourself in a position to just have a Strength of a Raging Fire come down and deal with almost any like 4 drop they play. And I think that's like pretty strong. You also get to keep the Bodyguard character. It's not going to challenge anything on board, so don't forget if you are playing against Amber Steel and you have a character you don't want to quest because you see a Powhatan on the board, just quest. They can't challenge with it anyway.
Very good point. Yeah,
but yeah, you have so much draw power too. Ariel, Stitch, and Bambi. This technically is draw power, even though it's only going to fetch you characters. I do like they included 1 copy of it. It's a little niche. It's not necessary, but it's also probably not bad to include. It's an excellent singer, and it does get its ability when it sings, and that's what's awesome.
I think you would find yourself playing more Bambi if the other 4 cost characters in this color pool were like of lesser quality, because because it is a really good card. Like, I want to stress that. Like, it's a good card standalone, like in a vacuum, but it's not necessarily better than Ariel, and it's not better than Angel given the current meta. So, if let's say post rotation, right? Like, there's just no Chroma Dogs in the meta, and the meta's a little different. I could see like Bambi being a lot more like prevalent in this deck. You made a good point last week that I forgot about. This ability triggers when you challenge, when you quest, and when you sing, and you are an Amber Steel song deck, so you're going to be able to really take advantage of that. How do you feel about no Shift Rhino in this deck list? I see a lot of people kind of pivoting away from Shift Rhino. I think Shift Rhino is so strong. Maybe I'm just traumatized. I feel like every time I lose to Amber Steel, it's because they're playing Shift Rhino. The being able to Shift Rhino, sing Thunderbolt, and then kind of play into your Nani, your Docs right after just feels really strong. So I'm a little surprised to not see it here. Is it too inconsistent, or are we just kind of playing into our Angel instead, or our Mulan? It looks like Mulan is what took up the space.
Actual reason. I'm just gonna go ahead and objectively think about like what cards some people are playing. So like Rhino is essentially like a 5 willpower character, but there are some ways to get around it. I know blue green is just probably a scary deck to have to deal with, and malicious being scary kind of puts a check on something like Rhino, for example, placing a damage counter and giving its ability, nullifying its ability. So you do not resist any damage while it has damage on it. And that might be a reason, but probably not good enough to not play Rhino. It has to really just come down to card quality. I think when we're kind of like looking objectively at like what our 1-drops need to be, like Mulan isn't doing anything except filtering our hand, but let's like look at the cards we play. Like I think like multiple Docs, multiple Coods, they start to get clumpy.
True, very true.
And we need a way to filter some of these out. So Mulan just doing that might be enough. Because once we're on the board and once we're like, singing songs, and once we're getting card value off of Ariel and Stitch and just getting more and more of our removal, it doesn't really matter. But you have to like get started doing that, right? So Mulan just might filter some of these cards that are a little too clumpy and that aren't getting our engine going. And again, we also have Lilo in the deck too. This is just a card that's a lot better, and it's basically the same thing in the hand and in the discard, right? So you're extending your hand size by pitching a Lilo into the discard, and it's still like contesting like a few, a handful of 1-drops that are in the meta. This still contests Grandmother Willow, and to be able to play it for free after the Willow turn too, just finding more and more like cycling is perfect. I think this makes more sense than the Rhino for this specific list. But Rhino probably can be, more effective, I think, if we are, less on like, the high lore package and more on just kind of like a tempo style build with like Goliaths and stuff like that.
We do have some spicy decks this week as well, though. We have João Fernandes playing Amber Ruby here. This list looks a lot like the Lucas Kaupa list that we had seen featured on the DLC Ghent stream about a month ago already, which is cool. And I like that this deck is still making waves. I think we're in a pretty good meta. We went from thinking that Dogs was tier 0. It was like Dogs, Blurple, and Purple Steel, right? And now it feels like Blue-Green is one of the scarier decks to play against. And we also have a lot of these interesting outliers. So Amber Ruby, I think what you really want to do with this deck is take advantage of your Webby's Diary. This is an item that says whenever you boost, you can pay an extra ink, I believe, and draw a card. And we don't have too many boost characters. It's Scrooge, Aladdin, and Ariel. That's pretty much it. But they all do something really cool when you boost, right? Your Ariel's going to draw you a card every time you sing a song, and you only have to boost her one time. It's not like some of these other cards where I think it's pretty bad. You have to boost them every turn just to get their effects. That's kind of like the skill power creep that I've noticed with boosting, right? Like when if a character needs to boost every turn to get its ability, it's a lot less in terms of card quality other than like Cheshire Cat, right? But when you have cards like Aladdin or Ariel, they simply say when this character has a card under it, it gets this following effect. Those boost cards tend to be a little bit better in my opinion. Then you have Scrooge McDuck, man. This card just becomes a 4/4, a 5/5, a 6/6, a 7/7, and it's perfect for a deck like this because you're going to be able to just boost constantly and draw draw a card and tell your opponent you probably can't quest with your characters anymore because my Scrooge can take it out in one fell swoop.
There's a lot of cool tricks I think this deck has. And I'll specify here with Della's Moon Lullaby, Ice Artisan Elsa is able to, tap down characters with 3 or less strength when it enters play or when you play a location. However, there's no locations in this deck. And we also have like Ghostly Tail that can do something similar. So you're going to just like put a lot of strength onto the board, and I believe some of your win conditions can come from Maui Shark, just kind of like adding back all these like powerful actions. But Raging Storm is just like really making this deck work like completely. After fighting the board, if they ever decide to like try to like overwhelm you, you have a reset button. You do have a lot of ways of just like removing other characters, like single target characters, without having to blow up the board too. Kind of punishes like your opponent for playing conservatively and, overextending.
All right, here we have a top 8 deck list from a Lorcana 1K at the Dragon's Horde. Huge shout out to Dominic B for taking another Ruby Amber deck list all the way to a top 8 of this tournament. It looks kind of similar to the one we just looked at. I think some key differences is that we play another boost character. It's our 1-cost Hercules. This card will be a 3-strength character when you boost it. And it does kind of fix the draw power issue a little bit by playing 1 Ohana Means Family, which I think just pairs perfectly with your Scrooge. There are some times where opponents will make really bad questing decisions, and your Scrooge can be like a 5/5 or a 6/6 already, and then you could just heal it up with Ohana and draw a bunch of cards, which is kind of nice. But I do like the ability of Rewrite History as like an extra recovery engine, because we are playing Raging Storm like the other deck, which, like you mentioned, is kind of like this deck strategy. You want to fight for the board and then have your emergency button. I know a lot of people were kind of mentioning that this deck has like bad recovery, so Raging Storm wasn't really going to work in this deck, but being able to grab back cards from your discard pile with Rewrite History, and if one of those cards is a shark and you just grab it back, you just kind of loop it over again, that's kind of nice. So the recovery is there, not as much as we would like to see it, but it can be there, which is cool. No Sisu Daring Visitor in this list. We are just playing the Della's Moon with the Headless Horsemen as a way to pop characters, but we're also playing 2 Timon. So 2 Mowgli, 2 Timon. Very interesting. I wonder if this is because of the curve that we want to see. We don't have many 3-cost characters in this deck other than the Aladdin. But I also consider Scrooge to be a 3-cost character, right? Because you can play Scrooge on 2, then on turn 3, if you don't have a 3-cost, you can play another Scrooge and boost one of the Scrooges as with your extra ink, which is very nice. So sometimes this Scrooge McDuck can also fix your curve, which is like an extra like secondary effect, I like to think. But Timon, it's like Mowgli. When you play it, look at the opponent's hand, but the biggest difference is that you as the player get to decide what card they discard, any non-character card, whereas Mowgli, the opposing player gets to decide, right? So that's very nice. And then we're also playing 2 copies of the Counting House, the Mixed Scrooge Counting House here, which is a boost 2 location that will generate +1 willpower and lore for every card under it. And that's another way to generate some extra value from your Webby's Diary, but it's also a really strong play to set up before your Raging Storm, right? You set up some locations, then you blow up the board. Your opponent's not going to have characters to remove that location afterward.
Yeah, there's probably even a world where like you're removing some characters and then developing your Counting House, and then like you're setting up like Raging Storm turns after like boosting with your Counting House. That is also going to just gain you extra passive lore for every card under it too. Don't forget. It's also only got 4 willpower, so it does feel a little bit more weaker into some of the like Amethyst decks, because they can kind of like put out quite a bit of strength and challenger abilities quite effectively to deal with it. So you may not get that combo off into those matchups per se, but I can imagine like a Blamber. Sorry, let me go ahead and really reiterate that. A Blamber deck being kind of like in a standstill with this kind of deck in terms of matchup. You have so much disruption with the Ruby class that even though Sapphire is like accelerating, both of you still have access to Raging Storm, so no one can really like try to come over the top. And I think this like 2-drop Scrooge McDuck is really being undervalued right now. I think this is actually one of the strongest characters to come out in the game in quite a while.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfectly balanced. It's like an uninkable, but it's cost 2. Think back to like decks that are like doing well. Most decks have a 2 cost uninkable a character in their slot. It's almost necessary to have a competitive deck list. So Scrooge is perfect, and just to be able to be used every turn after that, like it doesn't feel bad after turn 2. Like even if you don't have a 3 cost character to play, you can boost with the Scrooge to fill the curve every time. And it almost feels like you're playing a 3 cost character, because whatever 2-drop you just played plus a 1/1 strength, 1/1 increase on the Scrooge feels like it's enough. It makes sense. So the Scrooge just gets better and better. It doesn't increase its lore questing ability for each card under it, or else it'd be way too good.
That'd be way too good. That'd be like bannable.
But it works really well with the Ohana after you boost it a lot.
Speaking of Ohana, we have a Blamber deck, as we like to call it, by Fiend. Huge shout out to Fiend, who's a member of our Discord server as well, always sharing the deck lists, and we're always happy to feature you on the channel, man. They're playing 3 Ohana Needs family in this deck, and in this deck you have a lot of high willpower characters too. You don't have the Scrooge, to get them all the way to like 6/6 or 7/7 or whatever, but you do play the Nakoma, 6 willpower character, kind of scary. You got the Peets, the Scuttles, even a 1 copy of Cusco, the Selfish Emperor, which is all of these characters with 5 willpower or more. So yeah, when you're playing against these types of decks, you really have to pick and choose when you're gonna quest, man, especially with like the size of your character. Like if I have a Cobra or a Lexington against these decks and my opponent has any of these cards on board, unless it's Moana, like I am not questing. Like I'm not gonna give my opponent 4 cards in their hand, because for the most part, these 2 decks we just went over, they don't have a lot of draw power, right? So being able to play around their draw power is going to slow them down a lot. But Blamber, very strong deck. You really want to ramp into your big bodies and then board wipe over and over again with Raging Storm. You got Black Cauldron to bring back your big bodies like Hades, Surfer Stitch, or you also have Chippendale. Chippendale is a Shift Amber character that says anytime you ink, you can grab back a character from your discard pile. Very, very cool. I've seen people play multiple Chippendale and just loop it over and over again, just grab back the Chippendale and then play a new one later. So that's pretty cool too. So there are some pretty cool interactions with this color combo you can take advantage of, and I think the Mufasa is probably one of my favorite cards in this deck because it lets you ink everything without feeling bad. You know what I mean? Like being able to grab back some cards from your inkwell that are there, like maybe an Ohana's or maybe just more copies of like Let It Go or something like that. Pretty strong.
I'm actually curious to see how this deck could work in the Infinity format. There's just a lot of stuff that I think you can try in this color combo now.
Rapunzel's a princess. I would like to see Rapunzel in this deck. That'd be cool.
Yeah, cards are powerful. Rapunzel just is a way better Ohana Means Family. Let's be real. Like when they printed Ohana and everyone was like, Rapunzel's back. I'm just like, no, you guys are coping. Like this card's not Rapunzel. I don't believe you guys at all. And after trying out Ohana, it's just not the same. Like Ohana just feels kind of bad to draw in a lot of situations outside of just being ahead already. And so do you really need the Ohana if you're already ahead? But in a deck like this, like you're gonna want some pretty blowout potential, and that's what a card like Ohana Means Family gets to do in a deck like this, because you have so many high world power characters that you can potentially draw like 5 to 7 cards and just actually get there pretty effectively. So it's probably fitting for a deck like this, but I don't like playing like a bunch of copies of Ohana Means Family and like the Ruby Amber deck, for example. Like the 1 copy made sense because you had like Maui Shark to get it back, but then like it's always gonna like be a top decked card when you really need something to like answer a character, and then that's what makes more sense. But in this deck, like you do have almost like the same amount of removal. It just ramps your opponent, and that's what feels so bad, right? Like Hades and Let It Go just gives your opponent that extra ink they need to be able to play like their Raging Storms the turn early, or to go super wide with like a Purple Steel deck. Thankfully, no one's playing Pete Games Referee right now, or else we wouldn't be able to play our powerful actions that we have in a deck like this too. But Black Cauldron is also just that card that means you don't need to play multiple uninkable cards. You just need to play one because Cauldron can always get them back. So I like that the only one Chippendale and one Mufasa's in here because you just don't need to, clump it all up. Dude, just when I started talking about Ohanami's family as multiple copies in a Ruby Amber deck, one of my favorite all-time card players here, TGGR, I think that's Anthony Eckroth, and he's got some spicy stuff here with this one, man. Let's talk about a couple cards that are just being played in his list that weren't being played in the ones we talked about earlier, and that's Copper and Medallion Weights as one ofs, and we have 4 copies of Ares. This Ares is pretty cool, guys. I think that this one is kind of being slept on because this allows you to like re-ready your characters, and if you guys didn't know, that allows you to just challenge with Maui Shark multiple times or get some extra value off your Bambi, for example, because if you sing songs and get to exert Bambi again, he's gonna just find you more and more characters. And you do have the Della's Moon Lullaby here, and it's just going to work a lot well with the Headless Horseman as far as removing some pretty interesting four strength or 3 strength characters. But Maleficent Dragon being a 4 of 2 in this deck, it just kind of brings back old Ruby Am vibes. What do you think, Kevin?
This is a pretty cool deck list. It leans a lot more into this location synergy, 4 copies of the Counting House, and I do want to mention this is a first place deck list from this iconic Winter Spell 1K. I'm assuming the first place got a iconic Pocahontas, which is really cool right now because those are going up in price, right?
This is Saucy played this, bro. Saucy was telling me
that was
about
the tournament
this,
Saucy played.
this tournament.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I know, but they're all from Utah.
That's cool. Okay.
Yep.
So Utah gang, rise up. You got some pretty good players here playing some spicy decks. We even got the one copy of Nakoma, which is pretty nice. Which once again, a very clean card to be able to contest the board and threaten your opponent with a Ohana Means Family play. But yeah, like I was saying, man, really leaning into this Scrooge Counting House with the Raging Storm. Deck's called Benjamin's Counting House. Very, very cool. I'm a big fan of the Webby's Diary strat as like a draw engine. We're counting Benjamins, yeah. We're counting, especially when you win the 1K. You're counting Benjamins, man. Yeah. We also got Liquidator in this deck. A lot of the Ruby or Amber decks have been playing the 4 copies of Liquidator and like 1 copy of the the Nega Duck that's gonna have 4 strength, 2 willpower. This just completely power cut Gaston, which is hilarious, right? But this is a perfect way to like stop the aggro decks, the Amber Steel aggro or like the dog deck in the beginning of the game. Then you have just big beaters going on and on. So like with the dog meta being so popular, Ruby actually just has a very strong matchup against those type of strategies, or just Amber strategies in general, I'd like to think, right? Because you have Aladdin, Scrooge, Liquidator, all early cost characters that are just going to have a very strong strength and willpower. And like you said, man, Ares letting them swing twice is probably going to punish them for questing a little too wide, which is cool. Big fan of this deck. Huge shout out to Eckroth for getting first place at a 1K with Ruby Amber. There's some spicy lists in this tournament, man. In second place, we have It's Not Slow Play with the RIP Haram deck list, Ruby Sapphire. This is kind of cool, man. We haven't seen a lot of Ruby Sapphire do much this meta. And then some key cards that I really want to acknowledge here are going to be the combos of Grab Your Bow, Headless Horseman, alongside this Alice Accidentally Adrift. So this is a 4-cost character, Inkable, has 2 abilities, which is just really good. Any card with 2 abilities you have to consider as like a decent card in the game. It's going to quest for 2. First ability says when you play this character, put chosen item into its player's inkwell, face down and exerted. You don't play any items yourself, but there's Chromacons running around. There's a couple other items in the metagame, like the Della's Diary, which is really interesting, so you have outs to that. Second ability, whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character gets -2 strength this turn. That is pretty awesome. Being able to ramp into this Alice means that on your following turn on curve, you're going to be able to probably pop most characters with the Headless Horseman or even with a hard cast Grab Your Bow. I was thinking Grab Your Bow is just unplayable this meta, but now I kind of like where this is going, man. Not a lot of draw power though. That's the biggest problem with Ruby Sapphire. You have like 0 draw power, and it looks like in this deck the only way to kind of gain card value advantage or recovery is going to be with your Pete Ghost of Christmas Future, or maybe you're marching off to battle, which can be a good card, but the stipulation of needing to have a character banished this turn is a little rough, you know? Like, you don't have a Chernobog's followers to just banish himself and draw a card. That would have been really cool in a deck like this. You literally have to be able to resolve maybe your Horseman, maybe get a good trade somehow. I would like to see the Elsa Ice Artisan in this deck list to make the marching off to battle just a little bit better, but maybe it's not needed. Maybe I'm looking at it incorrectly. What do you think?
Not that you're looking at it incorrectly. I just feel like where some of the choices that in this the deck list has, just caters to kind of like wanting to always like have like the late game be in their side. So their dog matchup is going to be pretty critical, but it's going to be important for them to find like a Liquidator or a Tinkerbell to deal with things on like turn one. You need to ramp on turn 2. It's important, and more than likely play your Cinderella on turn 3 so you can start playing things like Hades and Maleficent, maybe even like a couple turns before. Headless Horseman will probably be your best friend too into that specific matchup. And you have Alice to deal with the Chromacon, which I think might have been a little too tough for a deck list like this to deal with. It's also important to note that the only songs they are playing are Marching Off the Battle and Grab Your Bow. And there isn't a way for them to like sing the Grab Your Bow like any early. So like they're only going to be able to like play it on turn 4 like out of their hand at best. But if they are able to ever like threaten a Maui Shark, Grab Your Bow like synergy, that's always going to be pretty good. And Marching Off the Battle just kind of like puts a lot of other decks in like an awkward position, because if like Maui Shark's also on the board too, you have to kind of worry about Maui Shark adding back Marching Off the Battle, being able to get you 2 more cards. You also have Distract in here to reduce the strength of some characters. That way you can safely Headless Horseman them away. And you can dig a lot with Develops and Visions. So finding specific cards could just be more in your favor too. And I'm curious, like if we're going to be playing like cards like Alice to also help us to reduce the strength too, like I don't know why we're not like choosing to play like Sapphire Coil. Maybe we just like would rather develop something onto the board a little bit more. Maybe we don't want to be forced to ink something right away to reduce the strength. So like
Yes.
we're pivoting away from cards like that.
That's what I think it is.
And
I think it's the fact that you can't afford to ink a card from your hand every turn with this deck anymore, because you don't have Flowersham, you don't have a draw engine, right? So I think that was the problem with Sapphire Coil. So like I really like this Alice. I think this Alice kind of fixes that problem. There's the body on the board, and it's gonna quest for 2, so it's kind of threatening. I do want to just kind of follow up and add Moana into this conversation, because Moana, in my opinion, is kind of like a draw card. Every turn that you're not inking from your hand, you're saving a card in your hand, right? So every other deck, for the most part, they're going to draw for turn, they're going to ink a card from their hand for turn. That's one less card in their hand. Moana, you're going to draw for turn, ink from your discard pile. Now you get to kind of keep your hand size pretty flush. So I like Moana and Ruby Sapphire as like the draw engine almost. Does that count? What do you think?
do you think? Well, I like what you're saying, and that's good. But if you are going to take a deck like this and you are playing Moana and Maui Shark together, be careful about inking all your actions from your discard, because you might want to get some of them back. You might not want to ink every card in your discard pile if you are playing Maui Shark or cards that do interact with your discard pile like that. Just giving you guys more food for thought if you guys are supporting this content. Again, don't forget to always like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments too what you guys think about these deck lists and more or less like the cards that are in some of the decks right now, because we're not seeing like too many dog decks doing well anymore. They get to show up here and there, and sometimes maybe they have their day or they have their matchup, but not too many of them have innovated past what we've seen, recently, done at the DLC in Ghent and the DLC in Taipei. And that would be that would be something to really like consider as the rest of this meta develops. Will dogs come back again when everybody starts to think they're gone?
And since we were just on the topic of Ruby Sapphire, let's take a look at this Ruby Sapphire Infinity deck list from a small 14-player tournament, Sunday Infinity Multiplier. We got to talk about this because Flaversham was just banned in the Infinity format. I am still a big believer in Sapphire just being an overpowered color pool in Infinity format. Although this did not win the entire tournament, small tournament, but you could still play Sapphire Ruby without the Flaversham, which we had seen before in general, like a DKP, very, very famous for making the Shark McDuck Manor combo working pretty well in the previous formats. This list not playing McDuck Manor, instead clearly taking advantage of Maurice's workshop. And I just want to stress this. I feel like Popsicle was the problem. A one-cost item that draws you a card, kind of broken, right? So when you set up your workshop, you just play the Popsicle, you pay an extra ink, now you're drawing 2 cards every turn. Very, very cool. But yeah, Ruby Sapphire still going to be a threatening deck, a deck you probably have to deal with in the Infinity format meta. Hopefully, Ravensburger starts supporting the Infinity format on a local game store level a lot more, not just with these next DLCs coming up, but for the most part, this deck is pretty good at doing everything it needs to do. There's no T-pose, which is really interesting. Wow, no T-pose is kind of crazy in my opinion, right? You want to ramp on turn 2. That's kind of wild.
I just want to kind of like make a comparison, not to bring up other card games, but when you are playing cards like Popsicle, it's like playing 4 or less cards out of your deck because it's always just going to find you the next card. More often than not, you will want to draw off the Popsicle. But
Upstart Goblin. Upstart Goblin, Upstart Goblin, Upstart Goblin.
Yep, Upstart Goblin, if you know, you know. And the items being, I think, a lot more important now than ever, even though Hiram is banned in Infinity. I think that there's tons of cards we can play to get a lot of value from the items. You know, you could solve a mystery. We could solve a mystery is a card that a lot of people are experimenting with, and that allows you just to look at the top 4 of your deck. It is a 4-cost song too, so it works perfect with Scrooge if you get to play it for free essentially. And then you look at the top 4 and you choose an item and a character amongst those, and you can add both if you find them to your hand, so it's extremely good value. But a card that we also have access to in Infinity is How Far I'll Go. If you guys also haven't been playing Lorcana since its very beginning, or weren't around when the rotation first happened and started playing after, this is a 4-cost uninkable Sapphire song. It just allows you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one to go into your hand, and then the other one is in your Inkwell Exerted. So that was like Red Blue's bread and butter. It was turn 1 Popsicle, turn 2 Ramp, turn 3 How Far I'll Go. So you can play Maui Shark on turn 4. That's how crazy that this deck got. And you know, without How Far I'll Go in this specific list, you are kind of giving up that specific line here. But Brawl being necessary again, what do you think? Do you still want to play Brawl even though Hiram's gone?
I don't think so. Like, I don't think it's needed. Obviously, we don't know how the Infinity format is going, but I think in a deck like this, like, you could just ramp into your Shift Sisu line, which is really effective. Because, like, Brawl really was in most decks to combat the Flaversham. I guess you could argue that, like, there's a lot of aggro decks in the Infinity format, like this Amber Steel aggro that we have on screen right now. But I don't think you need Brawl for this. Like, I think the 3-drop Sisu is fine to pop the Daisy, pop the Lilo, either any Lilo. Any Lilo actually gets popped by the Daring Sisu visitor, but you're able to shift onto the Shift Sisu pretty effectively because you're able to just kind of ramp into the shift line and then blow up the board, which is pretty effective, I think. So maybe you don't need Brawl anymore. Like in this list, I would like to see maybe Grandma Tala, How Far I'll Go, to be able to sing it, or I would like to see like the T-pose. Scrooge McDuck is a really good card too to combat aggro decks, right? You set up a bunch of items, you play the Scrooge for free, and that's going to make it a little bit harder for some of these aggro decks to pop off, because they are playing Pete, the games referee, in Infinities. It's a lot harder to resolve something like Be Prepared in this format because of the prevalence of Pete, but like Shift Sisu, it has an ability on play, if you guys don't know, banish every character with 2 strength or less, and that's like every character in most of these aggro decks. But here we have the winning deck list, Amber Steel aggro, which, the problem with Sapphire decks, yes, is that they do get beat by a curve of 2 Lorquester, 2 Lorquester, 2 Lorquester, 2 Lorquester. And we're playing a variety of them. We got all the Lilos here. We have Nala, which can quest for 3, Piglet, which can quest for 3. And then my favorite card in the aggro decks is Baloo. This card will net you 2 lore when it's banished. So even if they do use Sisu, any Sisu on you, you're still going to get that lore, which is pretty good. There is a point in the game where you're already at like 18 lore, you drop a Baloo, and it kind of feels like you just won already, right? Pirate's Life is going to be detrimental to this strategy, but that's the thing about Infinity that I find kind of boring right now, is that it does feel like you're either playing Sapphire or you're playing aggro to combat the Sapphire, and then you have like the outlier of discard players kind of running around, so it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of strategies. I know everyone says it's an unexplored format, but once again, Ravensburger, you have an unexplored format. Please give us some more official events, not just DLCs like on the local game store level. Infinity set champs win. But we have another Amber Steel deck, Zach Stone. This is more of a singer-song deck list that's playing Whole New World, Beyond the Horizon, and you're an Amber Steel fiend, I like to say, Zach. Let's take your favorite color combo. Which deck are you leaning more towards, like that you think is better, the aggro version or this like Whole New World singer-song version?
I've been playing some Whole New World singer-song version. Some of the cards also I have included in my list too. The Aurora Holding Court, and then it kind of works really well with Amber Steel right now. Just kind of being able to flood the board. I actually like the Shift Queen package quite a lot because of the Aurora. If you get to go turn 1 Aurora, you can essentially like turn 2 like play the 1-drop Queen for free and then shift onto that. And even though you can't like exert or use the Shift Queen, you just have like a really bigger body to start dealing with like opposing the aggro boards quite well, and then you can start singing your songs pretty fast. The Aurora Holding Court is also such a good character to just be able to play your aerial singer on turn 2. And something that I actually play in my list is Aerial Sonic Warrior. It's just another way to kind of deal with the aggro decks a lot more effectively. Now they are playing Pete, and I know that if I can't play a song, I can't pay 2 ink to damage characters, so I am including Angel 624 in my list as of right now to kind of have the on character ability of dealing with stuff. And something that I've always felt with Pete is that like if you have characters that can only get their abilities when you play a song or an action, that like Pete basically checks those cards too. So your Shift Cinderella, this Cinderella Stout-Hearted character, is probably not my favorite to play right now. It's also quite expensive, and if you're not even playing the Aurora Holding Court to be able to play something like that a turn early, it doesn't seem too worth it. Like, because I think a lot of us like the Akud combo, and why not just make it better with the Aurora? So I've been finding myself playing that card a lot more in combination with all the other princesses that are available, but the core strategy still remains. You want to go a little bit wide and kind of drop a larger board every time. So I've had to include some Lilo Escape Artists just to make sure I have something that I'm bringing back as well. You are playing for a Whole New World, so why not just have the ability to discard a card? It doesn't matter anymore.
But that is going to be all for this week's Meta Watch video, my Lorcana Goons. We hope you enjoyed this content. If you want to see more, please continue to like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, because we do these videos every Monday and Friday. And let us know what you thought about the beginning of this video. We want to actually experiment more with a little bit more creativity, maybe go over some other matches online that we find, or we can kind of just go over the play lines, what the players might be thinking or deciding, and why those decisions happen. And I think it helps a lot with being able to understand the game, because I hear from a lot of people that they want to play Lorcana on like a higher level and really understand like why it is that you make these plays, right? Want to be able to showcase that as well on the channel, not just the deck list as well. And also let me know what you think of the Infinity format. I know we have a whole video on the Flower Shamban where we shared our opinions and you guys left a lot of comments. That was very cool. But I want to hear what you guys think about it now, if you guys have been practicing, or if you guys are playing Infinity, or if your stores are even hosting any Infinity events. I've been seeing a couple of locations in our area start promoting like Infinity locals, and I think that might be the way to go. But third time asking Ravensburger, give the stores like what they need to actually host them. They shouldn't be up to the stores to like think of their own formats to host, right? But yeah, let us know down below what you think. My name's Kevin. We're here with Zach Stone. Thank you so much for watching the Meta Watch Mondays, and we'll see you goons next time.